So, what are the main points we've covered through this essay series? Well, we covered the potential causes behind the different trends in IQ and marriage in men and women. These included the social stratification theory. These included changes to dynamics in the workplace and changes to gender roles that have happened in the last decade or so in terms of gender equality. Some possible causes might just be related to poor experimental design from the study. And another cause was sexual selection theory, which we discussed in lesson 2. And then we looked at some other factors that might be at play here. So we looked at gender differences, both in emotional expression, brain differences, and also in types of intelligence. Speaking of types of intelligence, we looked more deeply into these different types of intelligence, which include things like verbal intelligence, spatial intelligence, emotional and social intelligence, as extensions of just this simple concept of IQ being a single concept of intelligence. We looked at additional contributors to marriage or relationship status beyond IQ, such as personality, such as perceived competence or perceived intelligence, and we looked at cultural perceptions and how they might affect gender roles, and particularly those regarding marriage. And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. We looked at a number of different things. We looked at divorce rates. You can return to the previous lesson material if you'd like to have a recap of those things. But we'll go through some of these today as well. So let's start off with how we want to structure our essay when it comes to writing. So let's start with the whole essay then. The John Locke Essay Competition is 2,000 words long, and that is the word limit. So you want to bear that in mind when you are thinking about your structure, which should include these 4 things. Your introduction, in which you define your terms, you introduce your argument, and you indicate how you will argue your case. And we'll go into slightly more detail about this later on in the session. This introduction is followed by 4 to 6 main paragraphs, and you can use subheadings to sort of title these and make it clearer to the examiner that you're making a slightly separate point in each paragraph. In terms of how many paragraphs you need, this will very much depend on the point you're making, and there's no specific sort of rule or regulation about how many or how little paragraphs you might want to include. But one thing I would encourage you to do is make sure you link the paragraphs. So after, each paragraph, make sure that the following paragraph, there is a little linking sentence or phrase to show that your essay has a logical flow to it and it's consistent. And then in the conclusion, or in paragraph 6, or potentially in both, you're going to include, as we discussed in the previous session, an explanation of the implications of the question. So why indeed does this question matter? What does this mean more broadly? And what further research needs to be done? These things should all appear in your conclusion. So what further research needs to be done? And then finally, to end literally with your last sentence, what is your final conclusion? That is, I think, a really good way to structure your essay that will show that you are writing in a coherent and a logical manner, and it will be easy for the examiner to navigate through your argument.